Kings insider James Sam. James, this is centers on Doc Rivers and Dame Lillard both said, or maybe Dame just like parroted what Doc said about, I wouldn't wish this on anybody. Walking into a situation where like there's only one result and it's to win a championship. Like walking into a situation where you are expected to win a championship and you're expected to win a championship right now. I think both were just illustrating how difficult that is. And of course it sparked the conversation of would you rather go to the Bucks or the Pistons? Like, because that's a different level of problems that you're dealing with on each front.
Yeah, I'd rather go to the Bucks because at least you got a shot.
Yeah.
I think for me, that's where I would be. I wouldn't want that Pistons job at all. And I get why he took it. I even with Monty, I don't even think he took that just for himself. Right. I think
What do you
he took
mean? We
that.
know exactly why he took it.
No,
He
but
said, I don't want this job. Hey, here's a couple million more per year. You know what? This doesn't look so bad.
Maybe we should
no,
have this conversation with Monty Williams because he has the 10 million and he coaches the
Right.
Pistons.
Right.
yeah, but what I mean by that is he didn't want that job, but what he did was he set a new standard for NBA head coaches, which has now become the norm and which will become the norm. And if he doesn't take that money, we don't know when that money initially, when it finally hits like
Yeah.
that. And so that's what I mean by I agree. He didn't want that job. At least it didn't look like he wanted that job. But when the money got so high, you're looking at it like, okay, this is going to take care of me and my family forever. But also, if we sort of break the glass ceiling on what an NBA head coach can make, then all of my friends behind me will be able to break this ceiling with me. And so I think that that's part of it. It's not you're seeing Popovich get the big money, you see Spoelstra get the big money, but it really does start with this like really really high contract that he was able to that Monty was able to sign with Detroit. Even a guy like Mike Brown, we don't know exactly what Mike Brown makes, which is different than normal, but I'm going to put him in like the neighborhood of $6 million a year, 5-6 million. Maybe I'm off, but that's kind of where the Kings were at with Dave Yeager and with Luke Walton. And I would be surprised if that's not what he makes. And then he goes on to win Coach of the Year, and there's another
I'd
guy
be
out there.
surprised if Mike Brown was paid in the neighborhood of Dave Yeager and Luke Walton. That is
You
not
think
the
he makes more?
Yeah, that is absolutely not the caliber of coach Mike Brown is.
Yeah,
With
but
all
I
due
think
respect to Dave Yeager, Dave Yeager was a good coach. Luke Walton was a completely unproven coach. Mike Brown was a multi-time. Well, maybe not. He's multi now. He was a coach of the year. He was a 60-win coach the last time he was on the sideline.
Yeah, I don't know what he makes for sure, but that's just like the ballpark. And most head coaches, there's a certain level of head coach that makes that $5 to $7 million range.
Hmm.
That before Monty gets his big deal, there's not a lot more money than that out there. I
Yeah.
mean, there are certain coaches that get paid really well, but I remember back when my first head coach was Paul Westphal, and I think he made like 1.75 million because he took the money and no one else like would take the money to coach for that little.
Hmm.
So we've seen it progressively get higher in Sacramento, but even throughout the league, but still like a solid like run of the mill to good NBA head coach is like $5 to $6 million. So I don't know that like that Mike Brown is gonna in his intro, like his first contract in Sacramento would make more than that. But again, I could be way off. If
We
I'm way
originally
off, I mean I'm way off by like a million or two.
If you're way off, you're going to get a phone call about this.
Yeah.
let me hold it down the mic. um,
Either way, Mike's not starving. I think that's the
No.
we started off with talking about Dame going back to Portland, Damian Lillard going back to Portland, and I think we're both in agreement, myself and D'Lo, that it should be a wonderful night for everybody involved. Cheers, standing ovation, all this other stuff for Dame Lillard going back to Portland. You feel the same way that it'll be a very warm welcome for him back in Portland tonight?
I think so. I think it could have been a really ugly return, especially if he's playing the Sacramento Kings tonight in a Miami Heat jersey. So, like just the way that was playing out, but the fact that he went to a place that allowed the Blazers to actually get some value, yeah, I think it definitely, you should welcome him back because, like, at a certain point, if a player can't win there and his career is winding down, which is exactly what's happening with Dame, then you have to be okay as a fan group with that player going in and finishing their career where they might have an opportunity. And I don't think anyone in Portland is
Mm.
like lost sight of the fact that this team isn't going to compete this year. They're not going to compete next year. They probably won't compete the year after that, but they might. But for right now, this was the best thing for a player who had been there for a long time. And I didn't feel that way when he was kind of strong arming his way out and trying to force his way to Miami. But now that we're at after the completion of the deal and he's in Milwaukee and there was, the Trailblazers didn't have to take on bad contracts or players that they didn't want in exchange for him. I think it all worked out the way it probably should have worked out, and good for Dame for keeping his eyes and his mind open to going to Milwaukee instead of just Miami.
Well, James, let's talk about the Miami Heat and the Sacramento Kings tonight. We have struggled through most of the day to kind of make heads or tails of this game. We don't like it's the Heat are in the midst of their longest losing streak under Eric Spoelstra. You got the Sacramento Kings playing well right now, 4 straight. Regardless of how you dissect the Memphis game, it was still a win, and it was the 4 straight one. And you got to think that both teams are coming out hyper aware of the other one.
Yeah, I mean, you hope the Kings don't come out with like the South Beach flu. That's always a problem there. And I mean, what have the Kings won like 5 times since Miami became a team in the NBA? In Miami, the Kings have only beat them like 5 times there. This is a big game for the Kings. Every game is big when you're trying to compete for a playoff spot, but this is a game that number 1 would secure a road trip, would give you'd start 4-0 on a 7-game trip, so you guaranteed to finish above 500. It'd be the game that puts you at 10 games over 500, which is a big mark in the NBA. It would help you build, confidence and keep the momentum rolling, and you're playing a team that isn't it strange where, like, if you battled this team who's lost 7 straight, you would feel so much better beating this team than barely squeezing by the Memphis Grizzlies, who are missing like half their team. And this is a team that's lost 7 straight. So I mean, you don't want to be the team that lets Miami off the hook for sort of their spiral here. But it's also this is a big moment for the Kings. They need to keep pushing. They need to find a way to get to 10 games so they can get to 15, so they can get to 12, but games over 500. And, every time you take a step back, it's so difficult to climb back. So again, like the difference between winning and losing tonight, it's going to 10 games over 500, or it's going to 8 games over 500 if you lose. And so I definitely think that this is a game that you got to circle and say, if we can get this one, this is already a successful trip. Now we're playing with house money. Let's go get it. And that's where I'm at with this team.
Dame loves playing house money, right? That's
I hate that term, but that's fine. It's whatever. Just saying, if the money's in front of me, it's mine. Doesn't belong to Sky River Casino anymore. It's now mine.
Yeah,
if I lose it, I'm not less. I don't have less money than when I walked in, but I still lost the money. That's dumb. Retire that term with dog fighting. Fight, and what was the other? Oh, beating a dead horse. Stop beating a dead horse.
Oh, and killing 2 birds with 1 stone.
Stop with all of the murder the animals analogy, and let's retire house money as well.
Well, the horse is dead.
Well, when I was young, I used to gamble all the time, and I had a serious grinder of a poker player or a blackjack player come up. We were playing next to each other, and he said, "Hey, go cash that out." And I'm like, "Well, I'm still playing." He goes, "No, go cash that out. Bring $40 back, start over, and start building again." He's like, "Trust me, it's the only way you're going to get out of here with anything." And I'm like, "All right." So there is something about like making it real money again and not have it be house money
Yeah.
And then you walk in, you're like, oh, I don't think I want to reach back in my pocket and pull more cash out. It's a big difference in reaching in your pocket and pulling more chips out. And it was a wise moment. It taught me a lot.
See? You learn.
There it is.
You learn. Now the Kings need to get a victory, go cash out, and get ready for Chicago.
Indiana.
Yeah.
Or Indiana. Yeah, sorry. Indiana, then Chicago.
Go to
My bad.
Indiana with $40 in their pocket.
That's right.
it.
Well, they'll be lucky if
That's
they
like-
got that after 2 nights in Miami. So we'll
I was
see.
gonna say that isn't even NBA lunch per diem.
No, man, that per diem.
Oh, you
That
could.
might-
Oh, that
yeah,
per diem is
full digits
big.
now.
And it's an
Most-
envelope
most-
of cash. That's just
most
dangerous.
of us could live off that per diem and just be perfectly comfortable. Just the
Yeah.
extra stuff they give you, yeah, we'd be fine.
I always remember A-Rod talking about the per diem he would get. Bro, you just signed a $300 million contract. My per diem.
These dudes
I
getting
know.
$80 lunch budgets, and I have to submit a request to get my $20 in parking from downtown back.
Well,
Damn shame the way they treat us.
James, another thing I had talked about with the Kings and Heat and their situation was I find it hard. I don't want to say to believe, but it's just, the Heat have lost 7 games in a row. I think the Heat are good. What, they just going to mess around and lose 8 games in a row? And like Damian talked about, you're going to set a new record here? Like, it sounds crazy. But another reason why this win would be impressive for the Kings is I feel if they were able to get this win over a Miami Heat team that would be desperate to get a win, it'd be a level of them imposing their will on a team. And it feels like that's something we haven't really seen too much this year, where they say, yeah, we know you're hungry. We know you're desperate, but we're the better team. We're going to impose our will and come out of Miami with a victory. And it would say a lot to me if they were able to get this win tonight.
no, I think it would too. I mean, no matter what, this is a dangerous team. We all know that. It doesn't matter what their regular season record is. When they get to the playoffs, all bets are off. And this is a team that just can make their way to the NBA finals at any time. And I don't know how that is, because a lot of times the talent level doesn't seem like it's there. But I'd also say there's some incentives in this game, right? Like the Bam Adebayo, De'Aaron Fox / Malik Monk connection is real. Like, these guys, they want to play against each other. They're all college teammates at Kentucky, and they all went in the 2017 NBA draft together. So that's one group. And then I would say that if you're Sabonis, like, you want to walk in there and put on a show, make sure that people know why you were the third team All NBA center and Bam Adebayo wasn't. Because, there are a lot of people who are out there who believe that the wrong guy, got the nod there. And every time these two play each other, it just seems like they get in foul trouble super quick, and it's like a really weird game. But that's a big deal. Like, you need to go in there and show up and put on a good show. So I think that there's a lot of things going on here between these two teams, and that always adds a little intrigue to the night. And I don't think what we're going to see is a disconnected Sacramento Kings team, which we've seen, I don't know, 5 or 6 times this season, where they just don't feel like they're mentally ready.
Monday.
Yeah.
That was a disconnected basketball team.
No, I totally agree.
They pulled together, and they did enough to get the job done. Hammer, do you think Mike has kind of corrected course a bit here with this team, and that it felt like early in the year he wanted Sacramento to be something? He wanted the Kings to be a defensive team, or at least significantly better defensively, and maybe they got away from their offense. Maybe he got a little too cute with what they were doing offensively and has kind of veered away from that. And just, we've speculated, is the Beam team back? Like, has they just kind of slowly gotten themselves back into the groove of where they were last year? Or are we seeing exactly what Mike wanted from jump?
Yeah, I mean, it's complicated, right? Mike still wants to see a defensive-minded team. He still wants them to have a defensive identity, that they don't start on game 1 of a playoff series that they've been cultivating the entire year, and it still hasn't developed. This team is, they're equal to or worse than they were last season, regardless of where they stand in the NBA. Just as far as like their defensive rating is like right around where it was last year. So it's tough because Mike is always going to have this identity crisis that he's a defensive minded coach, that his team should play a certain way, and that it's a battle to teach and to grow your team the entire season. And right now, I think you get 41 games in, and it's a little bit like the Harrison Barnes thing. Got 41 games in, now it's time to play basketball. Like the second half of the season is here. Now it's time for us to buckle down and get as many wins as possible right now. And however that has to happen is how they're going to do it. There is no more waiting around for players, or there's no more, there's still development time here for Keegan Murray, but it's almost like you put it on hold for a little while and say you're going to develop, but you're going to develop while we're trying to win every single game from here on out. And that's where I'm kind of at with this team. I think that Mike is doing his best to use the players that he has, and that's going to be the case until he has different players. And that's, right now it doesn't look like the Kings are super close to anything as far as a transaction here, but I would still say that, like, if they can improve the team between now and February 8th, they're going to. And that's the only way I see a clear path where the Kings take a gigantic leap defensively, as if they have one or two different players that would actually play minutes, that would actually be better defensive players and help this team improve.
Yeah, I just, I think they can improve with a deal, but I think you can improve with a deal for what's out there, a bench piece or a role player like some type of swing guy. I think at its core, this team scores, they get buckets, and I think that's how you get the best out of this team. And I understand the conundrum that Mike Brown may be in because he wants them to be more of a defensive-minded team and more serious on the defensive end of the ball. But it's just not the personnel you have right now. You have a team that, maybe when it gets to it, they'll lock up and play some defense, but you know, not 40 minutes of hell because it's not Arkansas, but 48 minutes of hell. That's just not what this group is. And I think what has happened and what needs to happen, if it hasn't, is play to these guys' strengths. And if anything, they probably get, and it's unfortunate, but they probably get more willing to play defense the more they're scoring. You know what I mean? There's players like that. And you gotta, if you're Mike Brown, hey, I need you to score. Like you can do it. Some people would say you can do whatever you want on the offensive end as long as you give me effort, some type of effort on the defensive end. And maybe that's the promise he's made with some of these guys.
Yeah, and you can definitely see, like, a player like Kevin Herter defensively has gotten better as his shot has come back around.
Mm.
Like, it's just kind of the nature of the beast. So many of these players are very specific. They have been the leading scorer on every team that they've ever played for since the time they were like 6 years old. And that's just who they are as players. And trying to make them into something different, or trying to get them to learn a way of playing defense that is actually impactful and sustainable, it's just not super easy. And, that's why sometimes it is easier just to go out and get someone else. I know that sounds kind of like cold blooded, but, if you really want to improve on the defensive end, go out and get somebody else. But know that it might not work. That just, when you go out and get a player and you try to say, hey, well, this guy does this, so he's going to help us. Like, I always get back to, like, when the 2002, 2003, 2004 Sacramento Kings, with when they decided to bring in Keon Clark, and like, hey, we need better defense. Let's bring on a shot blocker. And it didn't really work, and maybe they could have given it more time, or maybe they gave it too much time. But either way, it wasn't something that was noticeably different and changed the outcome of the team. I think if you're gonna make a move at midseason and you're gonna give up, like, really heavily on the offensive end to get defensive minded players, those defensive minded players better be able to play offense as well. And so you're just playing in a different talent pool, and that's where I don't think a fringe move helps you all that much, because, what if you go add a better backup center? I mean, the backup center on the Kings plays 13 minutes a night. If you want a better backup point guard, the backup point guard plays 13 minutes a night. So what are we talking about? How do you find a player that's going to unseat the players that you already have and really make an impact. And that it's just very difficult to do unless you kind of go on with an all-in move for, a player who's like known as a better two-way player that can actually impact the game on both ends of the court.
And that's the idea of bringing in a defensive player to turn the defensive fortunes around of a team seems a bit silly to me. Like you look at what's happening in New York right now, OG Anunoby, the Knicks look incredible since OG Anunoby arrived, but that's a defensive-minded coach with a team that is built to play defense. Like, it's not the same thing as bringing in a really good defender on a guy who or onto a really good defender onto a team that is known for their offense. Like, if the Pacers added OG Anunoby, what is that gonna do to their defense? Nothing. OG Anunoby better figure out a way to score if he's gonna keep up. I feel like that's kind of like what we're talking about here in Sacramento. Now, it's great that De'Aaron has emerged as a really good defender. It's great that Keegan is really, really starting to become a powerful two-way player, or at least a really powerful player on the defensive end. But that's not something where you bring in, a defensive stalwart, and it's like, oh, all of a sudden, boy, this Kings team, they were scoring 120 a week ago, but now, man, they're winning games holding teams to 90. No, it's not. Like, how many times have we already talked about, James? Like, there's not a lot of defense being played in this entire league right now.
Oh, not at all. Like, this is a shocking turn that the league has taken. Like, the only way, again, the Kings set the record for the highest offensive rating of all time last year. Right now, I think they're 7th or 8th. That number from last year would be 7th or 8th in today's NBA.
Yeah.
Whatever's happening right now is crazy. I mean, how many we've seen 270s and a 60-point night in the last week and a half?
270s
I mean,
and 260s. Carl Anthony
270s.
Towns did it the same night Joel Embiid did it, and then Devin Booker did it the night Luka Doncic did it.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, to me, that's crazy.
I don't know that
There were
sentence made sense at all.
Yeah.
But there was a 60
got
and a
it.
70 on the same night
it.
twice.
270s and 260s in the span of a week.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it just tells you that no one is playing defense. However they're calling the game, it's open a floodgate, and teams are taking advantage. And like, to be honest, teams aren't playing defense. And you brought up OG, and like OG is one of the rare guys that, he's averaging 15.6 points per game for the Knicks. He's a two-way player. He's a guy that, yes, will impact and will shut down a certain portion of, will help out on the defensive end. And if you would have had a guy like him and Keegan Murray side by side, who are both playing really good defense, then maybe you could improve the overall defense. But it's really hard to say. Let's just say the Kings trade for Matisse Thybulle, right? Matisse Thybulle is a great defender, but you're not going to play Matisse Thybulle more than 18 to 20 minutes a night. He's just not good enough offensively. And the fact that he's hitting threes at a higher clip, okay, it wasn't really sustainable. It hasn't held up all season long, where he's sitting out there hitting, like 40 something percent of 6 or 7 threes a game. That's not who he is. And so it's really hard to trade an offensive piece for a defensive piece and just like continue the continuity that you already have. And that's where guys like Jeremy Grant come in, where you're like, okay, he's a really good defensive player and he might be able to fit in offensively. Maybe that works. Maybe he works as like your version of OG Anunoby, but how do you get him out of Portland? And so there are all of these give and takes that you're trying to go through. And I would still hold on to the fact that I don't think this team, like, if you're just going to play on the fringes, if you're just going to be looking for an 8th, 9th, 10th man, like, I don't know that you need to make a move. Like, you might as well wait till this summer if that's where you're going, because that's not going to change you from being like where they are right now to where, like a third round of the playoff team, like a Western Conference Finals team, at least not in my opinion. And I think that right now we could all say that they could get bounced in the first round. They could somehow make it to the second round. We don't know. I don't think a move like that guarantees you that you get past that. And what are you giving up in order to get there? And unless it's just like an easy deal where it's like, okay, again, Davion Mitchell or Chris Duarte, you're not in the rotation, like set in the rotation, but we're going to go get this player to switch something small. Maybe that works. But it works as like improving you by a game or two on the whole season. And that's not really enough to make, to move the needle, in my opinion.
We'll come back. We'll talk a lot more with our insider, James Ham, here, our insider of the insiders, as we get ready for Kings Heat tonight here with Dylan with KC on Sacramento Sports Leader, ESPN 1320. Securing the Bagley, I'm going to acknowledge you one time because you do this a lot and it drives me nuts, but I kind of just fall back and let you get your shit off because you like to do it. But you've sent like 8 messages on this. Clearly, you don't listen, so I'm going to walk this out for you. I said the Knicks have a defensive-minded coach with the defensive-minded roster that they built. They brought OG Anunoby to tie it all together. Why you're firing off this silly shit about the Knicks stats as if that's not exactly what I just said, I'm not sure. I get this is your bag, and you like to do it, but at least listen to what I'm saying before you spend 5 fucking messages trying to make me look silly about what I didn't say. So go ahead, get your shit off, but like get your shit off about what I said and not what you think I said. Shit, man. Like, man, it's like you just sit like, what'd he say? Oh, that's fun. Look at these numbers. Look at these numbers. Oh, fucking listen. OG tied it all together. Man.
Yep. And he couldn't have tied it together that cleanly. Exactly.
The point is, he wouldn't have done that in Indiana. He wouldn't have done that here. That's Tom Thibodeau. That's the New York Knicks. And that's why, hey, you got to get a defensive player. Cool. What do you like? And then what? Hope that De'Aaron and Keegan and this fictitious defensive player all tie it together, because that's what's happening in New York. That would not have happened in Indiana. That would have not have happened in Sacramento. I don't know that it would have happened in maybe Miami. I don't know that would have happened anywhere else other than New York for OG Anunoby. That was the perfect situation for him.
Hey, look, I think he would help the team. Like, I think he would help the defense, but it's not going to make them like a top 3 defense in the league.
That's it. Like, enough to what? Help the defense enough to what?
Yeah.
Be better defensively. Like, okay, what's that worth?
And you couldn't get him. That's the end of the day. Like, and the other thing I would say, did you say we're back? Is that what you said?
No. I said, no, there's that.
Oh, yeah. My point would be this. In order to get him, you saw what it took. The only way to get him would have been to give up Keegan. And now you're looking at the same exact thing. Now you only have one defender again. There is no pairing him with Keegan Murray, because that's not what they got. They got a deal that was very specific, and it landed them a 23 and a 24-year-old starter. And the only way you could have done that is to send them Keegan Murray and something else. And I still don't know if that gets it done.
Well, you can't have Keegan, so.
For all you smart asses, shout out to the tribal chief who brought In-N-Out today.
Who brought In-N-Out?
Tribal chief Aaron.
Oh. Aaron went to In-N-Out and bought burgers for everyone?
Well, yeah. He bought a certain amount of burgers, and it was first come, first serve. So,
all right.
Okay, Bagley, ride that, bro. That's what you do. You're the one. You are the same guy who was in here repping Marvin Bagley for like 3 years, right? That's you. Okay, let's go with you. That's right. I'll trust your thinking. That's a good idea. You're right. You're right. You're the tribal chief securing the Bagley. My bad. You're right. You're 100% right. Kings would have been number 1 in defense with OG Anunoby, because that's the way the Kings are built. You're right. Fire off some of those Marvin Bagley tweets too while you're in here. Well, you want to pull some receipts? Let's talk, Marvin. Securing the Bagley. Let's talk.
We got beef. This is fun.
Here we go. We're coming back, James. Sky River Casino, where we will be this Friday. 32 Brew Street, come through, hang out, live show, into a watch party, and happy
Pacers.
Birthday. Yes, indeed. A different Pacers team than we saw earlier this year.
It is.
Tyrese, Pascal Siakam. Happy birthday to our man Calvin. That's Kyron's 9-year-old son, man. They are in the car right now on the drive. Calvin, happy birthday, Brody. We appreciate you.
Happy birthday, big dog.
Yes, sir. Make sure dad and the whole family takes good care of you tonight. All right, James, let's get back into the Kings Heat. We are 8 days away from the trade deadline. The narrative is starting to shift around players around the league. Suddenly guys aren't worth 2 first-round picks anymore. Oh, that was overblown. That was a media creation. That's not true. You noted this a minute ago. It's been awfully quiet. Kings are winning basketball games. They still play 4 games or 5 games.
5 games.
We just did this.
Well, they got 5 games because there's 4 left on the road trip.
Yep.
And then
Detroit.
Yeah.
At the Golden One Center.
Mm-hmm.
They still have 5 games before the trade deadline. The Kings could be on a 5-game winning streak, a 5-game losing streak, a 9-game winning streak, or like some combination of the both. But it feels like if you take the win streak out of the equation and look at recent play, like vibes are a little bit up. Is there a move worth making for Sacramento?
Yeah, I think the question is how much does this little streak of games, like, does it change your idea of who they are? And realistically, it shouldn't. Like, if you're going to make a move, you're making a move for today, tomorrow, and the year after. You're not making a move for today. You're not making a move because, yeah, I mean, this team is good enough to make the playoffs. I don't think I'm like breaking any news there, but they are. I mean, so if you're going to take a step forward and become a true contender, you probably got to make a move. And that move could be a move that makes you take a step backwards to take a step forward. It could end up just messing up everything towards the end of this season and really putting you in a tailspin. But if the move is the right move for you long term, then you risk that. But like, look, they're on the clock. Like, you only get like this small window here now where you're trying to put something together and you're competing with other teams for the same players. And this is when we start to, kind of all the BS gets sifted out. I don't think I ever believed, not even once, that some team was going to give 2 first-round picks for Kyle Kuzma. I don't care who it is. There wasn't that deal out there. So where do you go now? And like, if you're Washington, you made some commitments here, and you need to go out there and probably back off of those commitments and get back to team building and using the draft the right way and all that, and see if you can turn some of these players into picks. Because, like, I don't think you're not going to be able to deal Jordan Poole, at least not that I can tell. You're not, some of these guys, you're just not going to be able to deal. Kyle Kuzma on that contract, yeah, you can deal that. But you're not getting what you thought you were, or at least what you had somebody put out there in the press that you were looking for. So, we talked about this before I left today. You want $5 million for your house, and you put it on the market, and the best offer you get is $3 million. I hate to tell you, you don't have a $5 million house, you have a $3 million house. And it is what it is. So at this point, like, hey, if I'm the Kings, I'm jumping right back into that conversation, because maybe it is a right fit. Maybe it is a good player that can help your team. Maybe he isn't perfect, but very few players in the league are. And maybe this is a deal where not only can you get in and get a player that you need for not a huge price, but also if something goes wrong and in 2 years it's just not working out, his declining scale contract just easy to move. Easy.
And what was the?
We don't even talk like players finish their contracts. Oh, like, yeah, when it starts to decline, we just trade them. It's true. We don't even talk about
just
players.
Signed a contract this summer. He's just eligible for a trade like 2 weeks ago.
Right.
True that.
What was the trade that you guys had talked about on the Insiders? I came in for the tail end of it, but to get Kyle Kuzma in Sacramento potentially.
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, if Washington is really looking to hit the reset button, and I'm not sure what they're doing, because nothing that's happened over the last year really makes a ton of sense for what they're trying to do. But if I really am looking to reset and build out, I want I want picks for Kuzma, and I'm not even really concerned with what I'm getting back. Like nothing that you're going to get back should be on your roster in 2 years. Worst case 3 years. Like, but you should be able to take a step back financially in the deal, and you should be able to get like a lottery protected first, or maybe a top 10 protected first, and maybe 1 or 2 seconds along with matching salary. So our question, Kenny, when you came in was, can you get a Kuzma deal done without putting Harrison Barnes or Kevin Herter into the deal? And the answer is yes. It might not be like the easiest thing to do, but like you could put together a deal that included Davion Mitchell, that included Chris Duarte, that included Trey Lyles, and then a minimum scale player. So like a 4-for-1 swap. And that would get you the player that you want. And then that would allow you to move Harrison Barnes to the second unit, where he might be better suited as a player who, can get some additional shots. But then you're going to have to backfill. Then you're going to have to like search the league for, a backup guard and some of the, or you can just trust that Colby Jones and that Sasha Vezenkov can step in, and that Keon Ellis can step up, or, even Kessler Edwards, depending on who it is that you trade in a deal like that. But there is a way here for the Kings, because that, for me, that is a move where you don't just improve your starting lineup by swapping Kuzma out for Barnes, but you improve your second unit, because now your second best player on your second unit, instead of Trey Lyles, it's Harrison Barnes. And Kenny, I don't think you believe that Harrison Barnes is more valuable than Trey Lyles at this point. And I'm not advocating for trading Trey Lyles. I like Trey Lyles, and I hope he sticks around in Sacramento. But you're looking at a guy who's on a 2-year, $16 million contract. You don't pass up a deal that could strengthen your top 7 unless, you're going to have to give up something, is basically what I'm saying. So, yeah. Anyway, that's kind of where I was at, Kenny. And I know it's not something that everyone would be like all in on, but like financially it would work. And it would also work today, tomorrow, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, the year after that, where you got a guy who 28 years old under contract for 4 years on a declining scale deal.
And look, I will say this though too. As much as I want Trey Lyles here, and it's all about negotiations, right? I would negotiate to change that deal up. That's not a deal breaker. If I went back to them, I was like, "What you think about Harrison instead of Trey Lyles?" They're like, "No, we want Trey Lyles." All right, man. All right, we'll do the deal. I'm not gonna be like, "Well, deal's off." I don't look at Trey. I think Kuzma's the prize. I want Kuzma here. So as much as I like Trey Lyles, as much as I like Harrison Barnes, whatever I got to do to get Kyle Kuzma here in that realm of things, you know what I mean? I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll negotiate. I'll try and work the deal out a different way, but I'm not going to walk away from the table because of Trey Lyles.
Sure felt like you walked away from a table earlier this year when we were having a conversation about Trey Lyles.
What was it for Kyle Kuzma?
I don't remember who it was for, to be honest with you. I've been racking I don't remember what that was. I don't remember why we were doing that. I don't even remember why. I don't understand why Trey Lyles is in any of these discussions, but I get it. So I guess I think I know the answer, Ham. There's 2 players in the Kings starting lineup who have had, Kevin Herter's stretch over the last 7 games has been just dramatic. I mean, we're talking almost like I think he went from 9 points per game, like 9 point something points per game, to 17.7 points per game. He's shooting 48% from the 3-point line, when it felt like he was shooting 4.8% from the 3-point line through the first part of the season. And then you've got this Harrison Barnes stuff, where now all of a sudden Harrison Barnes is taking 15 shots per game, and you're left here again with 5 games before the trade deadline, and that's taking you all the way up till the trade deadline. Wait a minute, which version of this player are you guys? Kevin Huerter, are you the guy we've seen most recently? Harrison Barnes, are you the guys we've seen most recently? Or are you the guys who are, kind of digging yourself out of a I don't know what was, I don't call it a slump. I don't know what was going on with those guys to start the season. I have my feelings about Kevin Huerter, and I think there's a handful of people at fault for the way Kevin Huerter was playing to start the season. Harrison's confusing to me. I don't know.
I think it's all confusing. Like to have a shooting guard forget how to shoot and literally have like a giant hitch in his shot for weeks, and you could like the mental aspect of the game clearly got to Kevin. I think Harrison Barnes is like a really interesting case study in a player who just tried to be a good teammate and take a step back when the team asked him to, and didn't really realize how far of a step back he had taken. And maybe he's not a social media guy. Maybe he didn't hear like the drum beating from the fan base of like, why is this guy still starting? But then he shows up and you're like, okay, he looks really good. But at the end of the day, it doesn't change your major problem that you have with
Harrison
this team.
showed up like, I'm the greatest player ever. Like, I got 32, 39. Y'all can't touch me. Oh, okay. Well, welcome to the season, HB.
Yeah, I guess Damian, just depends on who you want to be. And like, if the Kings want to be a title contender, they have to have better players than what they have today. That's just it. They have to have the pieces that make you an elite team. You can't look at all the teams in the Western Conference and say, well, we're going to struggle against the Clippers because they've got Kawhi. We're going to struggle against New Orleans because they've got Zion and they've got Brandon Ingram. And we're going to struggle against, the whoever, Minnesota Timberwolves, or you just keep laying out these teams that are long and athletic. And at some point you have to go get the piece that makes your team whole. And however much that hurts, you kind of have to do it. And you're allowing Keegan Murray to grow, and he's trying his best to show you that he can fill one of the spaces that you need, but you still need the guy with a 7'3" wingspan that can defend the 3 and the 4 and give you some athleticism and go up against these long, super athletic forwards that you just cannot compete with right now. And so to me, it doesn't matter how good Harrison Barnes plays. It doesn't change the calculus, because as of right now, if he's the same player he was last year, you still needed that player. You still needed to go get that player. And we talked about it a bunch of times, but when you walk in your 4 forwards, walking into a season are Harrison Barnes and Keegan Murray and Trey Lyles and Sasha Vezenkov, you didn't address the giant need for this team that makes you better defensively, that makes you more versatile, and that's it. So I don't care what the last couple of games look like for these guys. It's good that they're winning, but you need players that fit the needs, that allow you to compete with Michael Porter Jr. and Aaron Gordon and all of these other players that you're going to run into if your pathway is to the playoffs and wherever that takes you.
And James, and I know you understand this. I know you're not necessarily saying this, but Damian, that goes to what we've said a number of different times over the last couple months. Why does that need to happen today? Why do the Kings go from 16 years and in 16 months you better be a championship contender? What? Like they're building something here. And they got out of the doldrums, got into the playoffs. Now they're with the unit they have, they're a legit playoff team. And everything that James said is right. You need that to be a championship contender. But this might not be the time to go get that. That might not even be available right now. That next guy to take you over the hump. That might not be available. So if you don't believe Kyle Kuzma makes you a championship team, don't run out and just go get Kyle Kuzma just because. It's okay to stand pat with these guys, make the playoffs, see what they can do, and then make your moves this summer.
I got you. And James, I think I have an answer to that. And James, weigh in on this. I think I have a response to that. That's what Mike said. Mike used the word contender. Mm-hmm. Mike was the first one to use the word contender. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't think he said, we are a contender, we're going to be a contender. He said, if we're going to be a contender, and granted, this was in training camp. I don't think he's used that word in a long time. He said, if we're going to be a contender, these are the things that we have to do. And then you had the flip-floppy stuff with Duarte and Herter, which I really think caused much more harm than any good it did. And I think that's why.
Yeah,
I mean, granted, you don't go into the season going, all right, let's stand pat. Like, if we lose in the first round, it's cool. Like, I get you don't do that.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
but even then,
choose your words carefully.
But even then, even if you're saying we could post up there and be like, this is what the Kings need to win a championship. And it will be 100% right. Mike Brown is like, this is what we need to win a championship. It's not for sale right now. It's not for sale. Like, it's not there. If you don't believe, there you go, right up there on the board. If you don't believe Kyle Kuzma gets you to a championship level, don't go get him just to go get him. Like, take your time, go get Harrison Barnes. I think Kyle could take you to another level where you could be a conference championship, maybe a finals type team. But if Monty doesn't believe that and Mike don't believe that, don't go get him just to go get him. Like, take your time, be patient with this whole thing, because you're right on schedule for what you're trying to build for a long-term success, and see what you get this summer. See what's available this summer.
No, I get you. I just know that this is professional sports. And, to quote the great Jerry Reynolds, anyone who tells you in the NBA that they have a 5-year plan doesn't have any plan at all. You have to find ways to improve. And again, like, if we equate this to like a house, like you're building a house, you got your foundation pieces, you frame the thing up, like you put the roof on it, but you don't have any windows.
They're out of window.
You just can't leave your house open with no windows and think, oh, that's okay. Because in the end, it's not. Like, what we're talking about here, and I'm not saying go get Kyle Kuzma just to get Kyle Kuzma. You get Kyle Kuzma because he's a better player than what you have right now at one of your positions. That's why you get him. And does he take you over the top and make you a championship team? I would argue no, but it doesn't mean he doesn't make you a better team. And it doesn't mean that he's not like an end, like the beginning of something that leads to something else. And that's where you have to be cautious about how much you give up and how much you're taking back. And, like, do not give up 2 first-round picks and lock up all of your first-round picks for the next 5 years because of Kyle Kuzma. But you do at least have to, like, figure out ways to get better on the fly and do it right now. And, we understand that this team has limitations, and they understand that this team has limitations. But we're not sitting here just wasting years of players' careers because you can't get a deal done, or because you can't find a player that, for whatever reason, the Pelicans can find 8 of them and you can't find any of them, And so at some point you do have to find the right pieces that can take you over the top. And just because you find a piece right now, that doesn't mean that you found the piece. Again, go back to, like, when this whole thing started in 1998, it was Tariq Abdul-Wahed was starting at shooting guard. And then it was Nick Anderson. And then it was Doug Christie. Like, it's not one move that you're all in on or you're not all in on, but you have to try to improve the talent level on your team. And that's where I'm at with Kyle Kuzma. Like, I think he improves the talent level on the team. I think Jeremy Grant improves the talent level on the team. And then it's like, how much does it cost you, and how do you get how much does it knock you off kilter making a move like that?
A quick note for the audience listening on 1320 AM and on the Odyssey app. Our first ever Purple and Black pregame show with James and Kyle is coming up next.
Nice.
Stay tapped in to that. And I really wish we had brainstormed the name of this thing, but I get it. The Purple and Black pregame show. We can run with that for now. We'll find something a little more catchy.
I had nothing to do with the naming of this.
I feel like I know who did, and we'll deal with that in time. But we got to be generic as possible because we're not the home, so let's be boring. Purple and Black pregame show.
Sacramento basketball team. Pregame.
And while they're out there, they can look for the James Ham and Kyle Madsen podcast.
That is the God damn it, James. First, the Karen to Bagley pissed me off. Now that Kyle and James podcast. They do have a podcast. You can check the insiders out in podcast form. You just can't search the insiders. You have to search Kyle Madsen and James Ham. And I'll answer the question you're asking in your head. Is that the most ridiculous thing ever? Yep, it is.
Somebody got paid to say no.
Title the podcast The Insiders with James Ham and Kyle Madsen. Why? Because I'm pretty confident James Ham and Kyle Madsen's names aren't trademarked by anybody else.
No,
Call the show
not even me.
As much, it reminds me, Casey, as much progress as we've made, we've got so far to go. I feel we're not there yet. We're not there yet. We still got work ahead. But our first ever Purple and Black pregame show is next on the radio, immediately followed by Run It Back. So there's much more Kings talk ahead as we get ready for the Sacramento Kings and the Miami Heat. How do you think how do you think Sacramento comes out in this game against Miami?
I think they're going to play a good game. I don't know if they're going to win or lose, but I think they're going to play.
Well, they're going to do one or the other.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I don't know. I don't know if they're going to win. I don't know if they're going to lose. They'll do one of them, but I think they're going to play a good game tonight. I don't think this is going to be.
So we set the over under. James, this was stunning. We set the over under for Harrison Barnes' point total in the Memphis game on Monday. We set it at 12.5. He finished with 12.
We all said over too,
and we all, except Jesse was the only one who got paid on Monday. So are we sticking with 12.5 as the number?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm going over again.
You're going over again. James, you going over 12.5 for Harrison Barnes?
I'm going over.
Jesse?
Yeah, let's go over. We're gonna have a big game today. We'll go over.
You gonna go over?
I'm not.
Ooh.
I'm not. But if we set the number at 14.5 for Kevin Huerter, where are we going? Because I'm taking the over on Huerter tonight.
Well, I'm going under.
Herter's going to show Tyler Hero something.
I'm gonna go under on Huerter. I'll go HB big game though.
I'm gonna go under.
Wow.
Under.
Okay.
Under.
Hey, Monk is back tonight.
Well, see that. So that's the thing.
Tonight.
I'm going back to Will Z talking about the interior defense of this Miami Heat team, and it does feel like it's primed for Fox, Malik, and Domantas Sabonis.
And Monk ain't gonna have 5 points against Bam. He ain't doing that.
Yeah, no. Monk and Domas is gonna have a 20 and 18 and 7 game that won't get referenced anywhere but here.
That's about it.
All right. So much more ahead. Purple and Black pregame show with James and Kyle coming up next.